So he gets pissed. It turns out that Megatron is having all the humans die because humans have been collaborating with the Decepticons apparently for decades.
Why they didn't surface in 2 or 1? Well, they were on vacation that day.
So then Prime and which other Autobot? I think it was the green one or the yellow one. One of those two. Another Optimus and another Autobot go to the moon.
I think it was Ironhide, but he doesn't really do anything.
No, Ironhide didn't go. It definitely wasn't Ironhide.
I don't know.
I remember there being a color. Whatever.
It was
so
a
they go to the
random
moon.
one.
They open this vault in the thing that didn't look like it had ever been opened. And they find Sentinel Prime in there, almost dead, and they find these 5 pillars, which are the pillars of teleportation. I'm just going to call them. They're called the pillars. I don't think they ever. Did they call them anything else?
I don't think they called them anything
else. They're called
the
pillars.
We'll call them the pillars of autumn.
Yeah. So they find a control pillar and 4 others, and then they get Sentinel to Earth. And does anything else happen before they wake him up?
I don't know.
Sam tries to get into the nest base.
Yeah,
and
I think that was afterwards, though. I can't really remember.
It's a really stupid scene. I already forgot a lot of it, too. It's been a couple hours. But yeah, so Sam tries to get into the nest base. He's not allowed. He fights a guard. Bumblebee shows up, and then they let him in. It's really stupid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, and Sam drives around in a Datsun, which is kind of funny because on the way back from the airport, we saw this Datsun truck in front of us.
Yeah, and I remember it was like, hey, that's not around anymore. And then, of course, he's driving Datsun. So, what happened after that? So, Sentinel Prime wakes up, and the humans hide away the 5 pillars.
Yeah, in this giant vault.
This vault that's big enough for a bot for some reason, even though the bots never move them into the vault. The humans push them in these crates, but why make it so big?
Yeah, and then there's a plot where they finally... There's not a plot, but I think later on they find out the Sentinel Prime is the key to it. He's the only one that can control it.
Yeah, since he's the creator, he's the only one who can activate the system. So so they go off, and I don't even remember what they do until he betrays them.
Well, actually, they're trying to get him to the nest base to get him with the control rods and in the vault.
No, you know what happens? Him and Optimus go into that scene in the middle of Africa for literally no reason. And then they have to... It looks like Africa, unless it's like the most deserted area of the United States ever.
There were elephants.
Yeah, there were elephants. So they were in Africa.
And there is a scene prior to that with Megatron and some Decepticons out in Africa. And they're just sort of sitting around.
Megatron's...
Megatron has a cloak. Why? I ask, why?
He's got a little beat-up cape, like a hobo cape.
Yeah. I mean, he's a giant robot.
Although it is pretty cool to see him all battle-scarred. And
yeah, because they did keep that continuity.
Yeah, there's a scene where the Doctor robot from the first one, who literally has no lines, but he's like in Megatron's head repairing him. And then there's all these little infection bots that are like these little spider things that he like flicks off himself all the time. He's like, get off.
Yeah, they're like robo-flies, which make even less sense, but we're going to move on.
So eventually they find out that Sentinel Prime is the key to all this, and they have to get Sentinel Prime back to the nest base.
Yeah.
They fight the Jamaican Decepticon and 2 other ones as they go back. They just successfully defend him, and then he's like, I made a deal with Megatron to save our home. And then he starts killing them, and he kills Ironhide.
Who did nothing, unfortunately.
Yeah, Ironhide really never had much personality.
I think he said a couple of lines.
He always has a couple, but he never really
all he does is say is shoot, shoot, shoot,
Sam, get to the building.
Or something.
So,
Starscream doesn't even get that many lines. The core Decepticons don't have any character. It's just Sentinel Prime.
Sentinel Prime and Optimus are the only ones who are really developed.
Yeah, I mean, everybody else is just there.
Actually, Laserbeak is just in a lot of scenes.
Yeah, there is that.
But that's supposed to be because he's the only Decepticon who goes into public and kills the scientists.
Yeah, he does.
But anyway, so Sentinel Prime betrays them. He goes into the middle of the Washington Memorial pond and sets up the 5 pot rods and sets up that whole pillar to the moon. All these Decepticons come through with like gunships, giant holder ships.
Yeah, giant hats. And then, of course, there's some technological issues. But then, for some reason, they don't take over Washington, D.C. They all
just sort of spread out, and eventually they end up in Chicago.
It's probably improved it a bit, but we're not going to get into that.
So they start shooting down. They take over Chicago, and they start shooting down. So the military doesn't know what's going on. And Sam convinces a couple Nest guys to go in. Oh, before that though, before the Chicago takeover, after the D.C. attack, Sentinel Prime announces, you have to exile the Autobots.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the dumb humans go along with that, and they're like, okay, we'll send them into space in that ship we showed off earlier.
Yeah, that was never seen before.
So they launch the ship, and Starscream basically just blows up the ship instantly because the Decepticons are lying assholes, and the humans should have realized, hey, maybe they're up to something. So...
They're Decepticons. Doesn't that mean they're deceptive?
You'd think. So they take over Chicago, they start doing the whole... They start getting this whole beam thing set up, which really takes a lot longer than it... Like, they seem like they have them all set up, but they're like, we have to wait for the pillars to align all over the planet, even though Sentinel Prime later on just announces, Decepticons, deploy the pillars, and they just sort of throw them up in the air and they just deploy.
Yeah, and then, of course, it's one of those things where it takes forever. It's like...
Oh yeah, and you found out earlier that there were hundreds of pillars that the Decepticons had hidden before the moon landing that the Russians had pictures of for some reason. They didn't see these beams being moved around on the moon and react.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is moving this stuff
around? And where
around?
were the Decepticons putting the beams up? And why wasn't this a major plot line of the first movie?
The only thing I can think of is that they hid them on the guys who got buried.
I guess.
Because they all came through, although they had guns though, so I guess some of them had pillars.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Everybody has guns now, kind of like they had the original cartoon, instead of having them built into themselves.
Well, some of them still do. Like Bumblebee randomly has a tank mode now, where he's just driving on his car and then weapons shoot out of the sides and the top, and he's just like. Blah.
But anyway, you got the Chicago battle.
You got the Chicago battle. So eventually, Sam and all the other people get in, and they try to shoot a rocket to destroy the control pillar.
They never even shoot it off, though.
They didn't fire the rocket because the Decepticons somehow magically know they're in the building.
Yeah, there's this... Oh, the building.
It starts shooting the side of the building so it leans over, and I swear to God, it's leaning this... Let me see, let me make sure it's on camera. This much the building is leaning. Did you say that's about right?
Yeah.
It's leaning like this. The gunships just stop shooting, and then there's that whole... Be quiet, they might hear us, because the Decepticon flies into the building and he starts sniffing around on their floor. And they're all behind the pillars, and they're all like, be quiet, he might hear us.
And then there's a scene where where the main military guy, you can see his head.
Oh yeah, oh my god. So they're all behind cover,
It's about as good as this. He's trying to hide behind the
Yeah, it's like the guy's head is, literally his whole entire head, except maybe the bottom of his chin is sticking up behind this desk. That was the worst shot thing. It didn't even make sense. So
yeah,
the guy detects them. They fight him. Then they run up the hill
of
the building.
Okay,
and shoot out the glass.
No, they don't even shoot out the glass. They're like, jump out the window. And they run and they smash through it.
They smash out the window, and then of course the building didn't look like it from that angle. But now the angle is steep enough for them to slide down the building on the glass.
Why they didn't break their legs when they hit?
And then, so they're sliding down, and then they say shoot the glass, and they start shooting the glass out in front of them. And of course, they all hit in a row, so they all fall into the same floor. And then they all fall into the floor. And then they start rolling again because the giant tentacle monster shows up and starts ripping the building apart, which takes 1 billion years to do.
I know.
I think it would just go through once through the building, and it would just be gone. Okay. So the building falls flat onto another building. Of course, their floor is on the side of that building, and they're able to jump down out of the destroyed windows onto a fire escape.
Yeah. Now, eventually, we get the final confrontation, and it gets pretty dumb too. You got Optimus Prime fighting Sentinel Prime. He's got an axe and a sword. He's just cutting them
Sentinel
up.
Prime has a giant sword. So basically,
Sentinel Prime is anime style. He's got this giant sword, this huge shield.
No, but that's later though, because so they do this, and then they start moving all the Nest guys into the city, and they do all this other badly shot stuff, like where those army guys come from at one point.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Eventually,
wait. There's a scene how the Nest guys actually get into the city.
They go in on VTOLs, and they literally fly out, and they go like this. Yeah. And then they have wingsuits that they fly around on.
It would have been cool if it didn't look so stupid. And also, it doesn't make any sense because they were shooting out jets left and right, whereas these VTOLs, they're going about a fraction of the speed.
You see, as soon as Sam arrives at the city, these jets fly in 3 jets, and then the Decepticons just like one, boom, boom. And then they go in on these VTOLs, and somehow the Decepticons don't even know that that's happening. They get into the middle of the city, and then they start getting attacked by Starscream by himself, when there are literally dozens of gunships all over the city. So they dive out, and they have these like films between their arms and their legs, and they're gliding. They literally glide miles.
Those are real suits, but they don't work quite like that.
They don't have any gear with them when they land, and then they have all these guns and grenades and shit. And
it's like, I don't know.
So eventually, there's all this other stuff that happens. Like Sam has to rescue his girlfriend from the megalomaniac, and he had to spy on the Autobots, which didn't go anywhere at all because they didn't have a plan.
Oh yeah, wait. Yeah, he gets captured by the Decepticon collaborators.
Oh, and his girlfriend's boss is is one of the biggest Decepticon collaborators.
Yeah,
he's a total douche the entire movie.
It's pretty obvious.
He's so dumb. It's astounding.
But he puts on this watch that'll kill him if he doesn't do what he said.
If he doesn't spy on the Autobots and find out their plan, the bot will kill him. So what happens is he meets up with the Autobots at... First there's all these gags where the watch like somehow tugs him around and like has him run his hand over computers and dive over tables.
That is not subtle. No, unless... Anyway.
Oh, and of course it can tap into his nervous system and see and hear everything he sees and hears. So basically what happens is he gets to when they're going to launch the Autobots into space, he's like, Optimus, you have a plan something. And Optimus is like, no, we're leaving. And then the watch just drops off of him and leaves.
Yeah, that's just hilarious to me. It's like, and did he really expect Optimus? I mean, they're like literally...
It's like, Optimus, you have to tell me your plan. And Optimus isn't like, Sam, why is this such a big deal to you?
Yeah, it's so dumb.
Anyway, back to Chicago though, because we're almost done with the synopsis.
Yeah, we are.
So they destroy the pillar eventually. Oh no, they don't actually destroy it. They knock it down. Does Bumblebee shoot at it or Prime? Someone shoots a missile at the control pillar.
Somebody knocks it down.
And it falls over, and this whole time Cybertron has been building itself in orbit. Yeah. It's like 3 times bigger than the Earth.
Which doesn't make sense because in all the other... I know this is a completely separate continuity, but in all the other continuities, Cybertron was supposed to be the size of the moon.
Wow. So, yeah, it's like they bring in less than half a hemisphere, and it's already the width of the Earth.
And I don't even know what the point of that is. Wouldn't that kill everyone on Earth? I mean, if you're going to have a slave labor force, you'd want them to be alive. And then why? And before I want to address this right now. Why would machines need a slave labor force? Machines wouldn't want...
Because there's so few of them.
They can manufacture more. We know they can. They can manufacture more.
There was that whole birthing thing in the second movie. Where they were born out of tubes.
I know, but that's even dumb. Anyway, let's finish this.
Okay, let's try to get this done. So they knock it down, and then there's this whole battle. Sentinel Prime is like, Prime, I'm pissed at you because you're not following my orders.
Yeah, you're not strong enough.
You're fighting for freedom, not for the Cybertron. It's for the Transfomers. God, I don't know why I couldn't say that.
It doesn't matter.
So he jumps down the building, and he has a double-bladed sword, and him and Optimus fight.
He's got an axe.
And Starscream gets killed by Sam in the bullshit.
There's
this whole gag where Sam grapples onto his eye. Oh, the Dr. Autobot gives them all tools: a grappling hook and a spike weapon to destroy people.
Spike grenade. Sticky.
The only time those are ever used is Sam kills Starscream.
It's so bad.
It's one of those gags where he grapples onto his eye and he's like, I can't see, and this whole time Sam's whipping around at like supersonic velocity.
We'll talk about how many times Sam's have died later.
Okay.